Welcome, everybody, to Broadcast Team Alpha, where we bring you cutting edge conversation while exploring the quantum possibilities. And we are really going to do it again tonight. You know, there is so much coming out. Everywhere you look, there is new information coming out. Things that have been buried since the beginning of time are starting to come up to the surface. And we've got even more that's going to be divulged tonight, if you will. I'd like to thank you for joining us. If you'd like to join us on Sundays for a mastermind think tank, so to speak, it's really manifestation. We come together, we image what we want in the world, which is mostly peace during this transition, safety, blessings for the people who are doing their job and, sacrificing their lives, but to keep our family safe and the people around us safe. And we envision it and we meditate. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of beautiful things that have been coming from it. If you'd like to join us, you can go over to Broadcast Team Alpha and send us an email. Just fill out the text form and we'll send you the Zoom link to the Sunday meeting. And you can come hang out with us and see if this is for you. Also, we just want to do a shout out to our friends over at the Conscious Awakening Network. All kinds of good stuff going on there, including we are streaming there right now and over in 40 platforms now. We're just really having a beautiful expansion time here. So without any further ado and with a whole lot of gratitude, Aage, please introduce our guest.
Yes, thank you, thank you. This is going to be fun because we have a very special guest with us, one that is really don't need any introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because we have Tony Rodrigues with us. You know, everybody knows, unless you're living under a rock, everybody knows about or heard about the secret space program. Tonight we will hear about that from our guest who was part of it. And he's going to talk about what he experienced. He spent 20 years in this space program. He came back and regained a lot of his memories from it. He has written books about it, and he's on the speaking circuit everywhere, conferences and being interviewed all of the time. And I want to mention those books, the titles, so we have it up front, because you really need to go and look what's in those books, because this is very special. He has one book with the title Beyond Sight, The Hidden History of Remote Viewing. And then there's another one that is Keras, or Ceres, I'm not so sure how that's pronounced, but probably Keras, The Colony Cavalier. And the third one is Project Star Maker. And you can find those books at his website on TonyRodrigues.com. That is Rodrigues with an S at the end. It's not Z like I used to think. So we get that right. And he also counsels people on remote viewing. And if you have a slight suspicion because of strange dreams or memories that you don't feel like are yours, that you may have been part of a government program or a space program or something like that, get in touch with him, because he counsels people on how to do that, and there are things that can help you regain that memory. So now, without any more, welcome to the show, Tony.
Hi.
Welcome, Tony.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great.
Great to have you. Thank you so much. And you have such a fascinating background. How did your life journey, bring you to this point where you're discovering your memories and doing cool stuff like teaching remote viewing? That's really great.
Oh, well, I tell you, I had a memory event. So, what happened to me, I was very young. I was 10 years old when I was taken, the initial abduction into the program. And I lived for 20 years, and then they used technology that the government has traded with extraterrestrials. And so at the end of 20 years, I was age regressed or consciousness transferred back into my original body and put back the next day. So I was gone for 20 years, but I was only missing out of my house a few hours. And I woke up the next morning, I was still 10 years old, and I was a completely different person inside. Throughout my life since then, till I grew up to now into my 40s, I mean, I'm 52 now, I'll be 53. But into my 40s, I had bits and pieces of the memory of the abduction that didn't make sense, like many people do. And I got an MRI scan and found out about the 20-year and return, the way that they put people back, all in the same period of time, short period of time, and the memories came back. After that,
Wow.
and that was May of 2015 when I got my memories back. After that, I've just been solely motivated by about proving it. So it's a tough story. I just talked about aliens and time travel and a lot of other things in a short time. It's just enough to scare away a lot of people. So I've ever just worked at proof. And in the process of proving my account and the things I remember and looking them up and following up, I found quite a bit of evidence and actually new information. And last year I went to Inyokern, one of the first places, the substance of my latest book, Beyond Sight. It's called Beyond Sight, the hidden history of remote viewing and psychoenergetics. And I've started groups so that we do remote viewing and psychoenergetics. We start groups, we teach it, and I use those techniques I remember from the government program. But just doing that has led me, that's been my life's journey. Every time I find some proof, I share it. And so I think that's both kept me alive and kept me talking. And so I think it's a lifelong thing once people regain memories that a government ET program suppressed. Once that begins, I think it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, and a lot of people in the beginning when we first started broadcasting Alpha, we really only interviewed experiencers, and so many of them went silent. Their lives got turned upside down, and it didn't go well. Their family thought they were crazy, and so it's so great that you are willing to be open to it and allow that to continue to unfold for you. Good for
Yeah,
you and us.
well, it hasn't been easy. I would be the first to say that. Thankfully,
Yeah.
I had some people around me that were supportive, but a lot of people were not. And there really is a cost to having one of these testimonies and speaking publicly. My children were ridiculed. Close members of my family don't speak to me. Friends I grew up with don't speak to me. There's a cost to speaking like this. So
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. I know, so I eventually not in the too far distant future, they're gonna see that you're correct. So
well, we already have had some evidence as soon as this week, this past week, at a conference I did in Denver, in Westminster, Colorado. We had a bunch of ships fly over and witnessed by hundreds of people that were called in by an
wow.
experiencer named Elena Danan. And so at that conference, she was a speaker and said that the Galactic Federation of Worlds would do a flybys and to go outside at 8 p.m. and wait in the amphitheater. And that's what she did. That's what everybody did. There were hundreds, if not about 1,000 people there. I took a picture of the crowd, and sure enough, several different craft came and buzzed the crowd at hypersonic speeds. We saw the TR-3B triangle at low altitude, and we saw many dozens of craft at high altitude going faster than satellites, faster than the space station. And at high altitude, you could see the bow shock in the upper atmosphere from them, and they were shining lights to us. They were turning lights on and off. There was absolutely no way they were anything other than spacecraft. So what I'm saying is this was a precedent. So this is now we have
Yeah.
a public flyover by UAPs on demand. So
Yeah.
validating her testimony by Daisy Chain, not only my testimony, but others that were at that conference and other people, many people that have subscribed to saying that they have the same experiences or contact with a Federation of Worlds I mean, she's the emissary, so there's other people that are coming with false information. But what I'm saying is this really puts a validation on the fact that these programs exist, the triangle exists, and we got excellent footage, excellent, and even more so than the great camera work we did. Seeing's believing there were 1,000 witnesses. So it's kind of, and it was in the middle of a city, so it was a great.
Wow.
It was a historic moment, and we're going to get more of these flybys in the future. So that's the thing.
That's
Disclosure has happened.
that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
Tony,
Yeah, you can't explain that stuff away. That is evidence.
Tony,
Absolutely.
where can we see that footage or picture?
I have some of them here. If you could give me a screen share, I think I might be able to
Yeah,
play one.
Yeah,
Matt, can you do screen share?
Let me try to load it up. It doesn't play great on this computer for some reason. The other thing is the footage has been out online.
maybe it's on YouTube already.
It is on YouTube. There are some YouTube footage of it. Let me look. I can find it.
Me, would have loved to have been there. Okay,
Okay, no problem.
okay,
Maybe I can get you the link in the chat. If you
that'd be
guys give me
great.
just a second.
Yeah, yeah. But when you were in the program for 20 years, and then they wipe your memory and bring you back, what kind of technology is involved in doing that? Do you know?
You mean specifically for the memory wiping?
That too, or even the age regression?
So, I've talked about this at length. That's a great question. And a lot of people have asked it in the past, like, tell us how it happened. So in the chat, I put a link to off my YouTube channel. There's a 3-minute video of the flyovers. There are many more videos that show them from different angles. So even as impressive, this is one of the better ones. There are some really good videos that show colors in the black and white. This was taken with a night vision camera. But back to your question, um, it's as if, the same way that you go in and get a surgery done. Let's say you're getting work on your whatever, your pancreas, and they put you under and you get a surgery. When you wake up, you really don't know what they did or how they performed it. You just know that you had a surgery. So the experience is a lot like that. Over the years, I've tried to put it together as best I can, and my theory is that I was a clone, that they could clone me in a short order, and in order to run the clone, they needed an aspect of my consciousness, my waking mind. And so there was a technology that moved that. When I look back in my life, so remembering when I was 9 is before the event. All the 20 years happened after I was 10 years old. And then I was right back and then 11. And so from now till I was 11 is 40 years ago. From now till I was 9 is like 60 or 70 years ago. You know what I'm saying? In my mind, I experienced the 20 years first, even though I may have been a clone. The reason that I suggest cloning is because when I woke up in the 20 years, I had no memory of who I was. I had no memories. Had a complete, and then at the end of the 20 years, I had those memories. And then I woke up again in my original body with no memory of the 20 years, as if I was taken from host to host. And so when I look back,
Wow.
cloning seems to be Occam's razor, the simplest answer is why I say that. So I'm not 100% sure on that. So please, I'm not willing to fight over it because I just don't know. It was like I had a surgery done to me and I don't know what happened. I try to piece it together in my mind, and my feeling is that there were two of me at the same time and my consciousness was diluted. The other thing that I found with myself and literally thousands of others that have had similar experiences through the programs is at the end of the 20 years, their consciousness seems to get it together, for lack of a better word. Like while you're taken, there are two of you, both are lesser somehow, mentally and emotionally. And at the end of the 20 years, when the other one essentially dies, the original person gets their consciousness whole and their life straightens out. They change it for the better. So that's a phenomenon that's very real. And I always look for that, like the 20-year mark, life changes around that time. So that is a direct. That's one of the things it's absolutely a symptom of the technology, and I experienced it well.
Can you explain that again? I really want to take that in. Can you say that again? That's
Sure.
really good.
So imagine you're taken. Let's invent somebody called Johnny. Johnny's taken when he's 10 years old, and now there's two of him. So if his mind, his spirit is a 5 gallon bucket of water, they clone Johnny and they take 2.5 gallons out and put it in the clone to drive it. At the end of 20 years, that's the limit of their technology of 20 years in the safety limit. So they have to kill the other one and put it back. And so at the end of the 20 years, when the other one dies, the 2.5 gallons of water they borrowed from Johnny goes back to him, and then he's got his original mind again. So it seems like somebody
Wow.
to be very intelligent, very astute, somebody always on time. All of a sudden, they get abducted into these programs, and now they're never on time. They have substance abuse, emotional problems, relationship problems, and all of a sudden, 20 years later, it just goes away, and they snap out of it, and they're fine. They don't know why. I will say this,
Wow.
like give you an example in my instance. Yeah, I was the top
Mhm.
5% of the school. I set the record for the SAT scores in my early grades, and I went to E's and E's the following year, and I eventually dropped out of school. During my teens and 20s and 30s, not the 30s, it was in the 20 years till my teens and my 20s, I couldn't keep a girlfriend. I was emotionally stunted. I was emotionally damaged person. And so whenever I would get a relationship, it would not last long because I wasn't there emotionally. I was a mess. At the end of the 20
Right.
years, literally at the end of the 20-year mark in my life, when the other me died and I was 30, within 6 months, I met my wife and I stayed with her for 23 years. So I was emotionally
Wow.
overnight. Overnight. It was like not a problem. And I stayed in a long-term relationship, was healthy and wonderful. There were no drama, no problems. And it was overnight. And then when I look back on the timeline from the date I was taken, April 15th, 1982, and roll the clock forward 20 years, that's exactly how it worked. And so
Wow.
this is something I also see over and over again. I always ask people, I try to get it down when I work with people one on one. I try to determine the intake event, when they were taken, when did it begin, and they usually have a few different answers, and then we settle it down to one, and then I add 20 years to it. I go, well, what happened here? What happened 20 years later? I add, and they go, how do you know that? A lot of people go, some people go, nothing. I don't know nothing, but a lot of them, if not most of them, go, wow, how'd you know that? My whole life changed, and that's a common denominator.
Wow.
That's a symptom of this technology.
Wow.
Interesting.
Really.
So you're taken and things are kind of chaotic then
Well, there's
until
just you
you
just
get.
diluted. So imagine your mind is a light that's running you. Your body is, it's a light, and then now I make two of you. Now the light is half as bright for each of you. It's like that's really the experience. And so when the other one dies, the light returns, and you're twice as bright. And people, I see that we see that change. Yeah, that's absolutely
Well,
true. True.
think they monitor people in the program, that are on Earth.
Well, there are different levels of monitor. So in my life, I have electronic hacks all the time. So I'm a public
Mm-hmm.
figure in ufology with a tall tale. So I'm a victim.
Mm-hmm.
There are people trying to intercept my communications on projects I work with so that they can steal them. And many of the things I worked on and was the first to speak of were stolen and
Right.
plagiarized by other people and put out. There are technologies, remote viewing methods, my testimony, things that I remember, the shape of the ships. There were many things that I were in phone calls, and then all of a sudden, other whistleblowers were coming out with them a month later. So,
Wow.
just being spied on by other people randomly in my life is prevalent. Then there's the government level, which could be the CIA, the FBI, or the Army, the military. They can spy on you. Then there's the secret
Mm-hmm.
space program level that they're spying on you through all your phone and your technology, and probably things in your home that happen. And then lastly, there are ETs that can abduct you and put a biological implant in you that records your life, and they can. So I'm spied on many different levels. I'm fully aware of this, and I've had people
Right.
play games with me and follow me around and do dastardly things that hacked my phone. I was unaware of how easy it was to hack phones. You guys sent
Yeah.
me a link and I refused to click it. So that's a security measure because It's expensive when I
Yeah.
clear my data up. After I get hacked, I've got to reset and purchase new hardware and reset all of my devices. It's an expensive affair, and it happens to me monthly.
Mhm.
It happens to me on a monthly
Wow.
basis. So there are times when I have purged data breaches and found out that it wasn't one or two people hacking me. There was upwards of a dozen people hacking my data. And so I'm in the public
Wow.
eye. This is what happens, and it comes with the territory. Not only that, but the data of my loved ones as well. And
Yeah.
it's a despicable thing, but it's the world we live in right now. You're probably unaware, and I'm willing to say that there are people listening to this that are
Oh,
having
yeah.
their phones spied on by people in their life that have no idea. They're not aware of it.
I People want to know. I mean, they want to know the results of their project with you, or like,
Well, firstly, I mean, they
you
want to see if I'm a
know.
fraud, right? So if I were
Oh,
somebody, they want to tack my phone and wait for me to tell my girlfriend, oh boy, it's all BS. They fell for it, right? Or I'm gonna next time, like they want to catch me in a lie, and what they really find out is that it's real. But then the other thing
mhm,
is, I am developing remote viewing products. I'm developing out of body products, binaural products,
mhm,
based on the classified military program that I was in Inyokern in this book.
Yeah.
Based on what I remember from my visit there in 2023, a lot of new memories. When you actually go back to the place and smell it and feel the humidity and look at it, a lot of memories were spawned, and I got a lot of information that is valuable. And so it just makes sense. I mean, who if you could
Yeah.
hack anybody,
mhm.
who would you hack?
Uh, Probably not.
I can't-
Not.
I have a problem thinking of hacking somebody. You know what I mean? I think people's
It's cringy.
privacy is so sacred. You know?
Even my best friend, like even my
Yeah.
best friend, if I were somebody that it's cringy to me, I can't listen to something for 2 seconds. But ooh, I don't want to be in a private conversation, right? I don't want to be a fly on the
Yeah.
wall. It's cringy. It makes me
Yeah.
cringe. But if I were that kind of
Mhm.
person, even if I hacked my best friend, sooner or later they would have an emoji or a joke about me or a remark about me where I would say it would be upsetting, right? So
Mhm.
everybody has the right to talk about other people behind their back for whatever
Mhm.
reason. It may just be for humor, it may be misleading the other person for whatever it is. But sooner or later, if you spy on somebody you love, they'll do something that you that would upset you. And so why would you do
That's
that?
true.
Like why would you
That's
bother doing
true.
that? All the people that I know that are hackers, it sabotages their relationships. They'll be friends with people. The ones that hack me, even people that have come in my class, they've been in my tier 3 group, and then they hack me and they have to drop
Mhm.
out because they find out that I'm not who I whatever. I say something they don't agree with somebody else, which is none of their business and out of context to anything that they know about. And I got
Mhm.
hacked. I learned it because I worked at a company. I was a manager at a store, and they hacked my phone, and I learned the behavior, and I realized the common denominators with many people in my life. So usually when they hack your phone, they don't want to speak to you much because they'll let something slip and get caught. So they quit talking to you.
Mhm.
Um,
There
but
is a
it's a
there is a
cringy, terrible
code.
thing.
Yeah, there is a code you can key in on the phone that will tell you if your phone number is going somewhere else. I'll text you that so you can check on
I
it
would love
every day.
that. I would
Yeah,
absolutely love that. Thank you.
yeah, you will know if you're hacked. You can also do that on the computer. So this is something that computer programmers don't really talk about because they're not supposed to.
Well, they all do it. There's gold in them hills. It's very important that, the first rule of warfare is to learn everything you can about the enemy. So, I mean,
Mhm.
that's like, it's very useful. The thing is, they usually stop short of stealing money because then, like, if they hack you and get your credit card info, as soon as they buy something, the credit card company will come and bust them. So if you go to the police
Right.
and say, my ex-wife hacked my phone and she's spying on me, the police won't do anything about it. But as soon as they take
Right.
$5 from your credit card, the credit card company will go and find them and they'll get in trouble. So
Yeah,
there's not a lot of financial crime in phone hacking. It's more about
Mhm.
personal abuse. It's an
yeah.
abuse.
Mhm.
Anyhow, I don't want to talk about that all night.
Yeah. Let's talk about remote viewing. Your
Sure.
classes. That sounds intriguing.
Yeah, and when we're done with that, let's find out what you saw on the Keras in space.
Series. So it's CERES is pronounced series, like television series.
Oh, okay.
So that's how it's the pronunciation. So yeah, series is there was remote viewing on series. So there were
Yes.
psychics that you could pay and have done there, and that's how I knew it. That was one of my early memories, and many memories from the project in Inyokern. I had started a group. We Jackie Kenner, my co-host a few years ago, and the editor of my book and the co-author of Project Star Maker with me, Jackie Kenner, beautiful, brilliant girl, helped me out, and really I owe the world to for helping me get to where I am. But we had both talked about things that I remembered in Inyokern and things that she had known from her life, as a psychic medium. And we thought, man, it works better when you have a group of people do it. We ought to start a group. And we always joked about it for like a year. And finally we did. We started a group, and it was a success. And it's remote influencing, if you will. It's manifestation through a method of synchronized meditation. So a group of people, 10 to 20 people, pick a target. We all meditate on it with the target, and we have our own little kind of secret sauce methods, but nothing too jazzy. And we get results. We meet every week. We started wanting ways to practice meditating, because meditation is the first move when you do that. So you have to meditate and clear your mind and then begin with what the targeting is. And we looked at remote viewing, and I kind of had a vague remember. I said, well, you gotta meditate for it. Let's do it for fun. And I started putting items in a 5-gallon bucket in my garage. And so they would remote view, and most of the time they didn't get what was in the bucket, but they got what was nearby. They would explain the area next to the bucket accurately, and I knew so. And a few people got it, got very close to the target. I think one of them was a phone hacker and cheated. But we started getting good at remote viewing, and I thought, man, this is fun. The other thing is the reaction. So we were doing these meditations and having these targets, and it was satisfying. But the reaction when people are remote viewing, and then you open the envelope and show them the target, it's just everybody. It's a lot of fun. There's an exuberance when they get the target. Everybody's just, you see their faces light up, and I thought, oh, this is good, And so I changed, and I made a remote viewing group before I went to Inyokern, and realized that the bulk of, and I knew it before that the Inyokern was about remote viewing and psychoenergetics, but when I went back and really got the memories from my trip there, and then I got back and I started really studying the declassified paperwork for Project Grill Flame, and looking for the funding. The funding dances right around Inyokern. It's perfect. And so I have paperwork that proves it in the book. There's a lot of paperwork in the book that is, there's a body of work in there that proves the program exists. Um, so I started a full-time remote viewing groups. There's 2 groups on Sunday, a 1 o'clock and a 3 o'clock, a beginner and then an intermediate group, basically. And we knock it out of the park. We do successfully remote view every single week. We do 2 targets a week. And that way, in a year's time, they can become expert. They get, 100 targets behind you. They get to that expert level, and we can remote view. So it's a superpower that anybody can do. There's a few steps to do it, and a kind of a habit to get into. It's like training a muscle. So the first time you do it, you're weak at it. And after a few times, you get better. And we knock it out of the park every week. It's a blast. And then, like I said, it's still the same. I open the envelope. Here's one here for this week. So it's just random numbers. Oops, I shouldn't have put that there. You guys can remote view it and skew the target. It's just random numbers on an envelope, and then when everybody submits their data, I open the envelope, so it's sealed. It's sealed shut. And so when everybody sends their results in, we do screen shares. It's like a Zoom format, and everybody sees what everybody else got, and then we open the envelope and we see, oh wow, some people draw the picture verbatim, and it's just wonderful.
Cool.
And even people that have an off day usually get 1 or 2 things right. So it's fun.
Good
How
deal.
can people join in that, Tony?
So it's on my Patreon. I had to raise the price. It's 50
Okay.
bucks a month,
Okay.
but you only need a few months before you can go to the next one. It gets cheaper as you go. For the Alpha group on my Patreon, and you can find it on TonyRodrigues.com, the Patreon community, or on Patreon/Talks with Tony, all one word, Talks with Tony. That's the channel. And then the Alpha group is for the beginners. it started getting complicated. The group got big, and some people were really good, and some people were new. So I split it into a beginner's one that give people the basics, and then another one. And there's even an advanced one that's going to launch after the first of the year, like a very
Oh,
advanced
wow.
version.
Wow, that's awesome.
I see we are down at the bottom of the hour now. So for those of you that joined us late on this show, we are talking with Tony Rodrigues, and we are talking about the experiences that he's had both in space on the secret space program and also with his remote viewing. And in the second half here, we're going to go more into also what he observed in space. And I'm really looking forward to that. And in the meantime, he were talking about how to join him in the remote viewing classes. And that is something that I'm thinking about because I've always been interested in that because I just never taken the time to do anything with it. But now I'm getting closer. I think I'm going to check out this. I'm going to do something with it. So, what did you observe in space? Where do you want to start on that?
You know, I spent a lot of time up there in the program, so upwards of 12 years. I was a laborer for the Ceres Colony Corporation's fleet. I worked on two separate ships, one for about 8 years and another one for the remaining 3 or 4 years. And I was a ship maintenance person. I did ship maintenance on the lower decks of a converted submarines, nuclear. Well, I don't want to say nuclear submarine. That's I don't know for sure, but we did have radioactive material. Submarines that had been converted into starships. During that time, I'd never had a window to look out of. I'd never had mission briefings. I just did maintenance. It was a really I don't want to say miserable job, but it was a miserable job.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I did that for about 8 years, and that ship was decommissioned. It got old and was falling apart, and they decommissioned it. And then the newer ship, they had purchased the chassis from an ET species and then converted it in their hangar bay to something that would handle a human crew. And I was promoted to cargo engineer, and I got to sit in on mission briefings. I got to look out the window, and we went to many different places a day and would come back, we would travel slightly back in time, so we were only gone a few minutes from the base. But we would go out and do in 8 hours. We'd go all over the galaxy. Sometimes we went to nearby galaxies. The ship could go very far instantaneously. And I think that's something that's left out of a lot of testimonies that's very important is that ETs can come here and go home in the same day. It's not a long trip anywhere. Once you get to that
Right.
Einstein-Rosen bridge level of technology, it's instantaneous. So near instantaneous. And so that was the case. That's what I saw. I remember we went to 4 or 5 planets a day. We came to the Earth, we'd pick up cargo, we'd take it out into the Kuiper Belt to a place, a big ice world that was like a warehouse there. We'd go to Jupiter. There's quite a bit going on around Jupiter. And actually, from the asteroid, from the Mars level of away from the sun outward, in our solar system is kind of where all the advanced stuff is after Mars. On the inside, where the Earth is kind of kept down to our level. So all of the high tech species were kind of outside of Mars orbit, except for Venus.
Yeah.
But we went all over the place. And then, like I said, I was a cargo engineer. I kept track of the cargo, the weight, and the available space in my two cargo bays on the port side of the ship, and that was my job for years. And I had a small paycheck, so I could buy tickets, train tickets to go into town and explore the Ceres colony, which we had about 250,000 people living inside Ceres, well, humans and two other species of ETs, and they had visiting ETs, just like in the movies. You know, we had ETs from all over the place that would come visit and on vacation or just on business. And that was the lifestyle there, and everything was connected by train. You know what? It's funny because it really was a mix of smaller, smart cities. Everything there was no cars. Everything was in walking distance, and there were trains. You were never more than 15 minutes away from a train stop. Was the rule.
Hmm.
Everywhere was a 15-minute walk to the train, and you could buy a day pass and ride the train anywhere you wanted on the whole inside. And it was all inside the interior of the planet, so underground. Um,
Mm.
big caverns that
Wow.
they found that they had built European-style cities inside.
Wow.
Well, then, is there something to this fact then that maybe most planets are hollow?
Well, I don't know about hollow, the whole thing, but there were caverns on the inside, and
Yeah.
there were certainly big tunnels that they had dug out. They were looking for water, so the Ceres planetoid has got a lot of water in it. It's a water asteroid, and so
Yeah.
whenever they found a pocket of water, they would mine. They would take all the water out and then go into that cavity and build an area and build infrastructure. So that was they were always after real estate. They wanted to keep building into it, and it was all connected by high-speed trains.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting, you know, that you had a job that was, I don't know, for lack of a better word, you know, a little mundane, because a lot of people, you know, were in the secret service military aspect, or, you know, warfare or intelligence. And how would people, how would just regular people who have this feeling that there was some kind of a blip on the radar screen in their life, um, begin to ask, you know, did that happen for me? Can you demand that the memories come back to you?
So I made some exercises that worked for me. So I have a memory course that is available. I don't even like it's for purchase on my website. I don't get any money from it. It's just I made the course. It's running on somebody's Teachable out there. Um,
Okay.
there are exercises you can do. So we've seen a real. There's been a real fad of people that have come. You know, when somebody comes and tells me they were the commander of the star system of whatever, I was a super
Right.
soldier, commander of the Lyrans, general of their army.
Yeah, I
I
know
I
him.
killed millions of people, and I was it's a red flag. So that's
Yeah.
just, you know why? Because the people that are in command up there don't come down here. They're
Right.
staying up there. The people
Right.
that were in command of me, that were running everything, lived in Ceres permanently. They weren't on a
Right.
20. So the people that were coming from Earth were labor. So when somebody
Mm-hmm.
tells me they were up there and they were a general and they were lived for 20,000 years and they were the general, it's a red
Mm-hmm.
flag to me. And I don't doubt that something happened, but I doubt the accuracy of what they remember at that point because it doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
For one. For
Right.
two, there are a lot of people doing hypnosis, hypnotic regressions that are telling people false memories because that's what they want to hear. It's a business. And so they're charging people $200 for an hour. And they're saying you were a super soldier and you were the commander of the Starfleet. And the people are looking for something to give them some self-esteem, and they run with it.
Yeah.
I've had people come up to me at conferences and say that they were a super soldier and all these things. And I say, well, what do you remember? And they go, well, I don't remember any of it. I said, "Well,
Yeah.
what are you talking about then?" They said, "Well, they told me I was. I went and got a regression and they told me. I got to read a
Mm-hmm.
tarot reading and they told me I was." So what this is clouding up the water. It's,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's clouding up the water
Sure.
for legitimate people. So instead of debunking people that they can't, that are legitimate memories, they're burying them. They're burying the needle in the haystack under false testimonies. And these are a dime a dozen coming from everywhere. So believe me, anybody that was in charge of anything significant up there isn't down here.
Okay.
That makes
All
sense.
right. That makes good sense. Yeah.
Mm. Now, Ceres, that was one place that you've been. Um, do you know anything about what's going on our moon?
Well, currently, so I was out of there right around the year 2000. So my memories of the political structure and the way that it was working up there was back in 2000, right? So
Okay.
anything that's progressed since then, it's only that I've heard from my friends. And like I said, Elena Denon, who summoned a Starfleet to fly over our conference last week, I have to trust
Mm-hmm.
that. You know what I mean? Like when people come forward and say they tell you the story, they have evidence. I have evidence that supports me of things I remembered that checked out. So many people have zero evidence and they claim a position of authority in this community. And I just have to say to them, "Where's your starships flying over your conference?" So show me a triangle and a bunch of hypersonic craft flying over your conference, and I'll believe what you're telling me. But Elena did not did that. She called it out, and it happened last week. So according to her testimony, on the moon, they're building a lot of technology to release to us post-disclosure that's going to bring us into the next century almost overnight. Many other whistleblowers and other people that are not whistleblowers but have people on the insiders have said the same thing. The future will happen quickly. Somebody that I've been interviewed with and I really love his work was Jay Widener, and he said that. He said the future. I have it on good authority. The future will happen quickly. So once it happens, it'll be almost overnight that we go into, the next era of technology. So there are stories, like I said, Elena, who's proven her testimony as with a resounding exclamation point last week, has stated that there are factories being built on the back of the moon to facilitate the Earth with technology once there's a disclosure and the official laws banning disclosure are lifted. So there are laws that prohibit them. The ships that flew over our conference, the alien ones, were limited to 65 miles above the Earth. The Earth Alliance, the triangle that flew over the conference, was at low altitude because it was a United States aircraft, secret space program craft. And so until those laws are restricted and we actually allow the ETs to come here, it doesn't matter what's going on in the back of the moon. But there is an effort, and there is that. What happened is good news. What happened last week is good news. It was a historical event. They extraterrestrial craft and secret classified anti-grav United States craft flew openly over a public venue last week. Mm-hmm. So this is it was the first week of a historical time, and they're going to do it again. So that's the other thing is between me, you, and the fence post, they're planning on doing it more.
Cool.
That is wonderful. Yeah, and I always thought there was something to her, especially after her and Dan Willis, they put together an electronic crystal contraption they were able to communicate between her house in Ireland and somebody in Japan that was playing music on hers, and there were no electronic connection. It went through the ether. So when that happened, because that technology was given to them by Yenhan, then the Pleiadian, and that was so phenomenal that there had to be something to that because it worked.
So Dan Willis, I love, he presented at that conference as well, and he's continuing to work on that program. I think oh gosh, Dan, I'm so sorry I don't have his website off the top of my head, but I know he's got a YouTube presence, Dan Willis, and it links to everything. But they're continuing, him and great guys like Chris Sassone and Kent Noonan, they're all working on the science team, and there are other people that are working on similar technologies as well that are based off the science. In my book, there's chapter 3 in my book, Beyond Sight, is dedicated to crystal technology and how they can imbue water and how it may have been being used on us, on the public all along for thousands of years. That I found credible evidence of this and presented on it. That's some of my new information that I'm presenting this year, is that the science behind that, what you just described, the Pleiadian crystal science from Jen Han coming through Elena to Dan Willis, that's being developed, those scientific principles, I have found evidence that they've been being used on the public at large for the whole time, since Egyptian times. And so there's really credible evidence for that. So this is an ET technology that we got to get our heads around. The crystals, the quartz crystals, and the way that they work in conjunction with human thought is extraterrestrial technology. So it's all good. It's all good news.
Yeah, speaking of technology and the human mind, when spaceships are traveling through another star system and back in the same day, is that technology faced with consciousness, or is it all technology?
Well, it depends on the ship. So there's not just one species or level of technology that's up there. So when so we're one species of humans. right? We like to think that racially we're different. We're not different. We're all one species of people. Look at how many different kinds of cars there are on our planet. Trucks and
Right.
semi trucks and sports cars and SUVs and little cars, cars that have the steering wheel on the left, cars that have them on the right, gas guzzlers, fast cars, slow cars, ones that have can go for electric cars. Spaceships are the exact same way, but at times the trillion different species and worlds that they come from as well. So it's not just one version of spaceship that's flying around up there. The Ceres Colony Corporation had several different craft. The bigger ones I really was classified how they flew it. There were 20 or 30 people on the bridge, each with their own station, people flying the ship, and they were interfaced with the ship's computer. The smaller disc, they had discs, chrome-looking discs that would go back and forth to the moon, and they had reptilian pilots that were interfaced with the ship mentally. So that's the ones that I witnessed personally. So that's what I witnessed. And you get all these other testimonies. The reason when you the reason when you investigate, if you're just a researcher and you start investigating ufology, the reason why it quickly sounds like gibberish. Because one person says this, they took me and this happened, and then another person said they took me and it was terrible. And another person said they took me and it was spiritual. I saw the guides, I saw Jesus. And then take another one, they say they took me and I went and they fixed me. And it was loving and I met my children from the future. So it's all the truth. The thing is, you're being taken by different species from different areas, possibly from different galaxies, with different levels of technology. Some species are barely into space. Some species have been there for billions of years and have spiritual mental technology. So that's really the case. We really have to open up our minds. I think a lot of people want to say a reptile or a Nordic, and that's it. The Greys, the reptiles, the Nordics, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, like that's all there is. But there are trillions of stars that are accessible. We only have names for a handful. So not everybody's a Pleiadian. These are species that can travel all over the place, and they're not based in just our star that's in our backyard.
Mm. Oh,
Gosh, this is getting so deep. But what now? This is a goofy question, but do you feel like there is a timeline that is laid out for us to a point where the disclosure and confirmation that yes, we are not alone is going to happen?
I think they're milking it for a lot it's worth, and absolutely, we're not the first world to go through this. We're not. Happens. This is par for the course. These species, these civilizations, the Galactic Federation of Worlds, the Orion Group, these large groups have brought other species into a post-disclosure uh, existence thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times. So happens all the time. We are not the first. Like they knew exactly what the car was going to do. They knew exactly what electricity was going to do for us. They knew exactly what the internet was going to do and what would happen. That timeline, it's happened many times on many other worlds. And so they know how to maximize it to their benefit, to keep us in the dark for as long as they can, to get the most out of us, and then to disclose in a way that also maximizes the benefit of the whole. So that's what you got to trust is what's going on. We have a lot of birth pains going on right now to a disclosure that happened. It might happen tomorrow. It might happen. It might be 10 years. Who knows? I don't know. I think that disclosure is like, I always tell people it's like a cake and it's in the oven. And when it's done, they'll pull it out and we'll disclose. But disclosure has already happened. I sent you guys a
right.
link of a video of spaceships last week. Um, but as far as the timeline, to answer your excellent question, by the way, yes, they have a timeline. They know exactly what society is going to react to. They know exactly what's going to happen. Let's face it, they have a psychological profile on all of us with a phone. The AI
Yeah.
has a
Right.
psychological profile on all of us. If you're scrolling on your phone, they know what your psychology is like, and they're testing, it's a temperature, and once it gets to a certain temperature, they're going to disclose. And so, the thing is, the world has changed a lot in the last 10 years, a lot.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's continuing to change. If anything, it's changing quicker. So disclosure is going to not be that big of a temperature spike. You know,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the big deal it would have been 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think also though that because of their mind technology and other technologies, they have been able to look at the future so they know what we are going to do and develop into being able to do.
Probable futures are they can look at probable futures, and they have
Yeah.
technology that are people that are alive to put implants that send information back in time. So they do have a good read on it, but it's not etched in stone. So the future
Yeah.
is changeable, but they have an idea of probable futures. And when we hear about things from the distant future coming back for us, you it's not the gospel. You don't have to fear that. And like a lot of the gray agenda that the grays are us in the future, that's not true. I don't believe that's true. They're just sneaky. They're just a sneaky. Some of the grays, not most of them, are sneaky, and they don't have interests in human interests. So there are species out there that could care less about us. There are species out there that love us, that look nothing like us, and some of them get it, that we're all essentially one organism of the universe, and some of them just are worrying about their own perspective, and that's what we've got. It's not a good and evil thing. It's what they align to and what they see us as. A lot of species don't respect us as advanced beings because if you look at some of the human behavior and wars going on and things that happen, the way people victimize each other, still, it's hard to make an argument against them. So but we're changing. We are this next generation of kids coming up. I'm very proud of, as much as all they're going through and the woke culture that they have to endure. The spirituality of these children, I'm very proud of my kids that I watch and their friends coming up. I'm very proud of this next generation of people.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were out there, did you see spaceships looking like pyramids? Because the reason I ask is because twice now there's been a huge pyramid, and there's videos of it on YouTube. This huge pyramid drifted across the sky of Moscow, Russia. That's happened twice. Everybody saw it.
So the pyramidal shape is common.
Yeah.
I didn't see any ships personally, but we heard kind of water cooler talk about them. We were aware of in our fleet of ships, there were ships with a pointed front end that was radar that looked like a B-50, like a stealth bomber, and they were rounded and tapered in the back. So those were the cargo ships, and then the battleships were giant triangular ships that were stealthy. So we get um, artist renditions of these ships with all these sharp edges, that are all look technical. That's not the case. All the ships that I remember were very smooth, very streamlined, and radar minimal. So all the ships that I remember were very smooth, all of them.
Yeah. When you mentioned the TRB3, but people out there said, yeah, there's no such thing. They don't have that kind of technology. I don't believe in any of that. Go to the US Patent Bureau. It is patented. There's a number on it. I have seen the patent. I'm a
I saw
patent
one fly
holder.
over last week,
Yeah,
last Friday.
yeah,
One flew over me and in front of 1,000 people. The link is in that video. I sent you the link for that YouTube video. Please
yeah.
share that for anybody. That was Friday.
Mhm. There is evidence this exists. And go to the patent bureau, read that patent. It's amazing. And there's a lot of patents out there that, in fact, there is one patent that I found that explains how they wipe somebody's memory.
Interesting. The
Yeah.
process that I remember was that it was like a industrial strength hypnosis. They would give me chemicals. They were injecting chemicals in my brain, like directly
Mhm.
to areas of the brain, your speech center or your geometrical center of your brain. And then we'd sit through, it looked like an arcade. You know the big arcade games that you'd sit inside? If you know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about, the games that you actually sit
Yeah.
down at the curtain and you go in there and
And they
monsters,
move.
Jurassic
Yeah.
Park, and it looked like those. They'd give you a shot, they give you medicine or medication, and then you'd sit in there with headphones and watch an industrial strength hypnosis movie. And then they take you out and put you at another one. And there were 7 or 8 of them, if I remember that. I'm sure I don't remember it correctly how many there were, but there were a few different stations. It was like an arcade. and each one targeted a different center of the brain that they were trying to put a block, a chemical block or some kind of hypnotic block against.
Yeah, I
Indeed.
seen it. We the one patent though that I saw on how to reprogram and place, actually it looked like there was one to place false memories were used by microwaves that had keyed in voice on it, so that you were sitting there being bombarded with that, and the voice it hits the skull and it resonates as a voice to skull technology, and you hear the voices, and that is run continuously. That's the one I saw.
Some of the programming that I remember worked exactly like that, where you were exposed to the same thing, drugs, and then it would just repeat continuously with electroshock, with a few other things. With during the 20 and back, I believe I did have an implant that could put data directly into my head, suggesting data, and it would repeat constantly.
God, I see we're down to about 4 minutes left here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that was fast.
Tell people where they can make contact with you and what you do and can help them with.
We're just getting warmed up.
Yeah. God.
So TonyRodrigues.com, all one word, Tony Rodrigues with an S on the end.com. You can find me on Facebook as well, even though it's kind of difficult. For my buddy tried it, he couldn't find me. But I'm on Facebook, I've got followers there. TonyRodrigues.com, links to the books, to the Patreon. You can contact me there. My email is, I get a lot of email, so I'm not quick to respond, but I do respond eventually. But you can find me there, you can find all my stuff. The remote viewing I teach, it's not about the target, it's about the session. So it's remote viewing is to build up your own intuition so that you can listen to your voice that tells you to go right or left every day, any day. We always use our intuition. Remote viewing is a great way to hone it because you have instant results. So my remote viewing groups, I'm proud of that work we're doing there. I'm proud of all those people, and I'm looking at many, many different things to experiment and move remote viewing forward. So that's what I do. You can find that on my Patreon, Talks with Tony on Patreon. And it's a monthly subscription, but it's worth every penny. I'll show up for you there. I'm in groups every single week. And that's what I do. And I have Odyssey Sedona coming up in 2 weeks. That's my conference. It's going to be here in Sedona. It's called Odyssey Sedona. You can find that on my website too. And it's about remote viewing. We got people from Farsight, some of the finest remote viewers out there. Yemi Janae and Aziz Brown are going to come and present. And other people that really tight, Lily Nova, and other people that are really good at meditation. So I'm putting these together. This is my work now. I'm going to be creating a lot of products. There's a lot of practice products and products that I'm putting out. I really want to push this forward. Everybody should do some remote viewing at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got 3 books out there. Say something a little bit about what they will find in each one of those books.
Absolutely. Series Colony Cavalier is the account of the 20 years. It's what I remembered originally in May of 2015. The memories came back of the 20 years, and that's the substance of the book, Series Colony Cavalier, from the moment I was taken till I was put back. Project Star Maker is the spiritual and questionable side of the mind things I remembered, another 10 years stint. And I didn't put that in the original account because there's no evidence behind Star Maker. Project Star Maker, I don't have evidence. Series Colony Cavalier, I have evidence. I have real-time evidence supporting it, and I'm ready to go toe-to-toe with any skeptic. Project Star Maker doesn't have evidence, and I state it like that, but it's a read. It's the spiritual side of it. I learned a lot, and it's something that needs to be talked about. And then Beyond Sight is about my time in Inyokern and the evidence, and only the beginning of the evidence from the Project Grow Flame and from the timing of my time in Inyokern and the technologies that I was exposed to. It's not just remote viewing, it's psychoenergetics, influencing the targets, changing the time and the dimensionality of targets, and many more things, looking into the future, looking into the past, and how advanced the United States was, and the CIA, and McDonnell Douglas, and the FBI Special Services, and a host of other organizations were in 1983. They were very advanced, and I have a lot of that. It's a tell-all about that, and there's a lot of reading in there. You can go and just keep researching. I hope you guys do. It's my casual reading is the CIA declassified library.gov. That's what I do in my spare time.
Oh man, that sounds good. All right. Well, gosh, this was good.
Thank you.
Where are we at on time wise? We're
Yeah.
close. We pulled it right to the time.
We
There's
got
lots of
time.
conferences.
Yeah.
I just want to say there's lots of conferences, and that you please put that YouTube link up of that video. That's very important. That's history. That is history. They didn't fly that triangle over somebody that was going to vaguely remember it. They flew it over a crowd of 1,000 people after they said they'd be there at a certain time. That's what that video is. That is disclosure. We are getting disclosure. This is a huge event. Please put that link up and please check that video out and share it. Share it all over the place. It's being shadow banned. We had UFOs over us. There's the proof. 1,000 people saw it. That's only the first of many videos. There are dozens of videos. Some of them have different angles. They show the colors, the lights. This is irrefutable. These were hypersonic aircraft flying over, hypersonic in the upper atmosphere and over contested airspace over a major city of Denver. And so that video is very important. We live in a historic time. This week is absolute history as far as disclosure goes. And it was all on the back of Elena Danon's testimony and her predictions. So please revisit her info. And and keep your eyes open. These conferences, there's going to be more of these flybys. This is the next ratchet up. This is the temperature has gone up on disclosure. So stay tuned.
That's good.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, this is wonderful. And I'm hoping that you can come back sometime later on and ask.
I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. Thank you for